My name is Mary Kay Devine, and I'm the Director of Community Initiatives here at Women Employed. I'm joined by Carrie Thomas, the Associate Director of the Chicago Jobs Council, and my colleague Chris Warden. It is our pleasure to welcome you to today's meeting of the Pathways to Careers Network. Before we dive into the substance of the meeting agenda, I'm going to ask Chris to review some webinar housekeeping items for you to make sure that the meeting goes as smoothly as possible and that you can get as much information out of the day as possible.
Good afternoon. During the presentation today, your phone lines will be muted. We have a full agenda today, so we must ask that you hold your questions until after the presentation. The chat window on the left-hand side of your screen will be open throughout, and you can type questions in that chat window anytime during this presentation. And you can continue to use the chat feature after the presentation, but you can also use the buttons at the top left-hand side of your screen to raise your hand so that you may ask a question of the presenters. You'll have 3 opportunities today to share your feedback through polling questions. And at the end of the session, a survey will pop up on your screen, and we ask that you take 2 minutes to provide your feedback, and we'll use it to plan future webinars. As you heard when you entered, this webinar is being recorded, and we will send you a link to that recording so that you have access to it after today. If you need technical assistance, we encourage you to call ReadyTalk, our webinar service provider, at 1-800-843-9166.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So this is not new information to the people on the line today that we have an urgent need to improve adult transitions into college and careers. We will probably start every one of the Pathways to Careers Network webinars with this information as an urgent reminder on the work that lays out ahead of us. We know that by 2020, 60% of jobs will require college degrees or certificates, and an alarming 3 million Illinois adults do not have education beyond high school. And most concern is that out of 100 future jobs, 24 could go unfilled due to the lack of skills. To address the skills gap, Women Employed and the Chicago Jobs Council launched the Pathways to Careers Network this spring in April 2012. It's an initiative to increase college and career success for adult learners with low basic skills. The Pathways to Careers Network advances the missions of both organizations. For nearly 40 years, Women Employed has been mobilizing people and organizations to expand educational and employment opportunities for America's working women. And for 30 years, the Chicago Jobs Council has worked with its members to ensure access to employment and career advancement opportunities for people living in poverty. I would like to ask everyone to participate in our first poll of today's webinar by confirming your membership status with the Pathways to Careers Network. If you don't believe that you are already signed up, please click Sign Me Up Today, and we will add you to the network membership list. If you think you're already on the list by participating in past webinars, or if you're a member of the Transitions Academy, or if you've sent me a personal email, please click that choice. By securing your membership with the Pathways to Careers Network, we will send you future invitations to webinars, in-person meetings, and our periodic newsletter, e-newsletter, Blackboard. If you haven't responded to the poll already, I ask you to do so now because we're going to close it out. Last chance to secure your membership. And if you don't respond, but you want more information or you want to contact me directly, obviously my name and email is all over the place, and it will also appear on the final slide of today's webinar. Great. I'm now going to pass controls over to my colleague, Carrie Thomas from the Chicago Jobs Council.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today's webinar is the first in a series of webinars based on the recently released guide from the Illinois Community College Board. The guide, Creating a Successful Bridge Program, a how-to guide, draws extensively on other guides that have been released in the past, including the 2005 guide from Women Employed and the 2010 guide from Instituto del Progreso Latino. The ICCB guide updates those, also adding some of the experience from the Shifting Gears Initiative and other work in the field. Each chapter of this guide is designed to focus on a critical component in bridge program development. Each chapter includes an Illinois best practice example, and each includes relevant worksheets and other resources. In each webinar that we host, we will do a deep dive into one or two chapters and feature an experienced program provider and provide opportunities to ask questions and have some discussion. In each webinar, we will also be actively collecting information from you to help us design future webinar content. There we go. Okay. As I mentioned, the ICCB guide draws on these other two guides, and we provide for you here information about those guides and links to them. So the first one is the one that was published by Women Employed in 2005, and then more recent guide from Instituto that was published in about 2010. Great. So today's webinar focuses on the startup or foundational components and activities that are necessary for planning a bridge program. We asked all of you who registered to read Chapter 1 in preparation for today's call, Building the Team. We know that many of you are already actively engaged with a team or a partnership to design or deliver bridge programs. And those of you that are new to the development of bridge programs are likely not new to the idea of partnerships or team approaches. So we expect that you have either partnerships underway or in the early phases. And today we will feature presentations and discussions of Chapters 2 and 3. So before we go into the deep dive of Chapters 2 and 3, please tell us about the status of your team or partnership. In this poll, tell us whether you have no team, whether you're just developing your team, or you have an existing team. So it looks like most of you are answering. We'll leave the poll open for a couple more seconds. All right, I'm going to skip to the results. We'll see how we answered. Great, that's a really interesting outcome. So we have the highest percentage of you have an existing team that's implementing a bridge program. All right, we're going to move on to some presentation and discussion about Chapter 2. So in Chapter 2 of the ICCB guide, the goal is for your team to identify the career cluster and pathway in which your bridge program will be situated. This analysis should be based on evidence that there is current and projected demand for workers in the industry and occupations that fall in that cluster, and that your team has the capacity to design and deliver an effective program in this cluster. Today, Tom Du Bois, the Director of New Initiatives at Instituto del Progreso Latino, will talk about their experience developing their healthcare bridge program. Tom will walk through the 3 steps that the chapter provides to guide practitioners to identify the career cluster and pathway. So the first is addressing the need for a bridge program. Second is effectively linking the bridge program to career pathways. And third is using available information in the design of the program. I'll now turn it over to Tom.
Thank you, Carrie. Hi, everyone. Honored to be part of this. Thank you. Yes, we began Careers in Salud, literally careers in health, about 7 years ago. Dr. Ricardo Estrada began as the director and is the primary author of the manual. The initial partners in this were Association House, which is a community organization of very long standing, a settlement house in Humboldt Park. Ourselves, Instituto Progreso Latino, a 35-year-old community-based organization in the Pilsen Little Village and Southwest Side communities of Chicago, and the National Council of La Raza, which is a national Latino organization comprised of about 300 affiliates across the country, including the two of us, Association House and Instituto. And as you'll hear, we then added the Humboldt Park Vocational Education Center, a campus of Wright College, one of the city colleges of Chicago. So this partnership grew out of a sector analysis funded by the National Council of Raza to involve their two affiliates, ourselves and Association House, in the process of discovering skill gaps for Latinos, our target population, in high-growth sectors. 3 sectors were selected for more in-depth study, based on initial review of the data. That is healthcare, construction, and transportation. We already had at Instituto a bridge program in manufacturing, but we were very interested in wanting to provide an additional choice for our community residents. So we conducted, with the assistance of a consultant, a sector analysis. And the results were, well, construction had strong growth, high earnings, but very seasonal employment and high barriers of entry. And of course, a recent experience over the last couple of years now, just reinforced, I think, that analysis. Transportation, strong projections of need over the long term, but a lot of the decreases in the past few years with funding cuts, very dependent on public spending. Healthcare, we looked at growth projections were stronger and more consistent. Possible career paths exist with entry for low skill and opportunities to advance. Specific industry demand for bilingual individuals. High quality healthcare training available, but in low numbers and not including bilingual community residents. So it looked like a great opportunity. Other considerations, many of which are listed in Chapter 2 of the manual. First of all, we wanted to be sure that our students could access the jobs in terms of being local. Students would be able to travel to the potential jobs. Use of supplemental labor market, using labor market information, but supplemented with employer interviews and our focus groups. These can be different, and I think focus groups are great to be able to get the interaction between employers and also to identify any employer associations and involve them in the discussion. And this is where we really found and discovered the demand that hospitals and nursing homes had for bilingual healthcare professionals. So also important to identify what we call the interim employment possibilities along the pathway. So there was an entry-level point with becoming a certified nursing assistant. There was a mid-level point and a higher level point in becoming a licensed practical nurse and associate RN. So, but it was important to identify the trends of the industry and occupations and how they're expected to change over the next 5, 10, 20 years. So always have to be cognizant of the level of future demand and understand how training then would have to change and understand how training would have to change if the program is implemented in terms of capacity, entrance criteria, et cetera. So also, as mentioned on page 20 of the manual, we have to look at what we call the supply side. Who's doing any related training in this area already? Is there still a gap between the demand that's identified and the supply of people that's identified, or are there some issues with the supply? In any case, our model of training said, well, as a community organization, we need to link with the community college providers of training, and this led to our partnership with Wright College and their Humboldt Park Vocational Education Center. In terms of our target population, we found some interesting data on the lack of participation of the Latino population in the higher level, LPN, RN professions. And we learned that the Hospital Association was very interested in changing that, that they, as I said, really needed bilingual healthcare professionals to meet the, their customer demand, their patient demand. And so we identified some of the reasons for this and looked at how we might address them through a bridge program with a career pathway. So then the purpose of Careers in Salud became to build this customized career pathway in nursing occupations in order to assist employers to meet their demand for a bilingual workforce that also satisfies the need of the region's burgeoning Hispanic population. So it's both an issue of employer demand and an issue of the need of a target population. So this is a schematic of what we initially just sketched out on the blackboard there at Wright College to look at how we could connect individuals. As you can see at the bottom, English as a second language and teaching that in the context of healthcare, and then develop that into vocational ESL, preparing them to take the CNA program at Humboldt Park, and now also at Daly College, and then to move on through a pathway, with an interim employment demand and patient care technician, and to be able to then move into the college, meeting the requirements that the college has to be able to go into the LPN program and associate RN. So that just in brief is a picture of the pathway that we together as partners put together. And then finally, of course, is our first graduating group was very exciting. Then for a lot of individuals, residents of our communities, to be able to now access a great opportunity in the healthcare area. So that's the presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
We are now ready to move on to questions. We have about 5 minutes for questions and answers. But before we open the line, I just want to flag some of the resources on page 25 and 26 in the how-to guide. And Tom also mentioned some things you might want to look at on page 20. And these should be helpful for connecting your program to a career cluster. Before you ask your question, please introduce yourself with your name and organization. You can submit a question via chat, and then I'll say your name and repeat your question. Or you can raise your hand, and we will unmute your line and give you an opportunity to ask your question. So please let us know if you have any questions. Tom, we have a question from Betsy Rubin, and she wonders, now that the city colleges are involved in the reinvention process, will Instituto continue to partner with Wright College, or will you partner with Malcolm X, which has been designated as a new healthcare hub for city colleges?
Yes, certainly a good question. As far as we know, the program is going to continue with Wright College in Humboldt Park. Certainly, Malcolm X, as said, will be a hub. I think the plan is to develop more of a relationship with Malcolm X and explore that while still maintaining the relationship that we have with Humboldt Park. But I think it's a good example of how conditions change over time as you implement a career pathway program. But it's probably a topic for another discussion in terms of sustaining the programs over a longer period of time.
Right. I know a lot of people have sustainability on their minds.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question from Jennifer at Prairie State College, and she wonders how the ESL and English grade levels were defined and determined and assessed. To the extent you can answer that today.
Sure. Yeah, just a brief answer. I think we started with what are the entry-level requirements to go into a certified nursing assistant program, and then went back from there and thought about the time that it would take for people to be able to move up to meet those initial requirements of a certified nursing assistant program. And so we looked then initially at having our contextualized ESL program at a grade level of 4 to 6 is measured on a TABE test, and then the contextualized pre-CNA going from 6 to 8 to have them ready at an 8th grade level to go into the certified nursing assistant. And of course we continue to work with people, continue to provide tutoring assistance, et cetera, as they need it to go through. And then we have to look at bringing them in our pre-LPN level to continue to increase their level of English and math and computer skills to be able to enter college. So that's where that's a pretty big gap there, going up to a 12th grade level. So it's definitely a challenge, but a lot of people through their very serious work are able to meet the challenge and proceed and then enter college. So I guess that's the quick answer. Some people, of course, can enter the pathway at a higher level, and that's the beauty of a career pathway. It gives you multiple points of entry and exit.
All right, thank you. We have a question from Kim Ammon-Scott. Your hand is raised, and if you hit *7, you can unmute your line and ask your question.
Hi, this is actually Jill Blair at Heartland Community College. I'm sitting with Kim and a couple other colleagues. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, great. Go ahead and ask your question.
So my question was, you said that Instituto used a consultant during the sector analysis, and I just wondered, what kind of qualifications did you look for in a consultant? Who did you end up going with? I found that kind of intriguing because a lot of times the barriers that we run into is that we're a small team here at the college, and we aren't experts in those kind of things. And so bringing in a consultant, I think, was a great idea. I just wondered how you approached that.
I think at the time, the National Council La Raza kind of put out a request for consultants to submit kind of a proposal of what they would do, what their qualifications were, what the cost of doing the project might look like, and then we worked together to make a selection. I think we then interviewed different people and made our choice.
What kind of consultants, what were they? Can you tell me the name of the company or?
I'm blocking on the name right now. I can certainly send you her name afterwards.
That sounds good. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Tom.
But we were fortunate that NCLR had the funding to be able to do this, and that's sometimes an issue. So.
Thanks. Well, Tom, we'll follow up with you and make sure everybody gets some more details that you can provide to us.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you've asked a question and you're done, if you could hit *6 to re-mute your line, that would be great. We then had a question from Ellen Rice, who asks, what was your timeline start to finish? I'm not sure if this means your timeline for starting your program or the timeline of the entire program. So why don't you pick one of those, Tom, or try to answer both?
Yeah, I think it's probably a timeline for people to move through the pathway. And that really varies on obviously where people start, but if they're starting in the beginning, it depends on what their level of prior health care experience and training has been. We found quite a few immigrants from Mexico and Central and South America who already had a significant amount of training, so they were already familiar with a lot of the technical part and so language was their primary issue. So they were able to move much more quickly through the pathway. So it can take people, 3 or 4 years really to move through, if they're starting at the low ESL level. And we have had, some people do that. I can't say a lot, but it is a long process, and as they say, life intervenes. And so that's where it's been important to provide people with a lot of support as they move through it, in terms of supportive services, of counseling, of tutoring, sometimes transportation assistance, et cetera, and the importance of navigating the whole process. And, so as far as the program, I think it was about a process of a year and a half to develop what we wanted to do, and then just get some initial seed funding that allowed us to have a half-time project manager, and then that helped us access some state funding, which was really then our starting point.
Great, thanks. We have another question from Fred Stanley. What services or funding sources were you able to wrap around these students, ensuring their success? So could you talk a little bit about what the type of wraparound services you have are and what funds those?
Sure. Well, as I said, we began with some of the state funding, but as far as the wraparound services, what really became important was some foundation funding initially. And so those dollars are quite flexible and allowed us to provide the support services, allowed us to provide a counselor and also a tutor, particularly as they're going into some of the higher levels. They need the academic tutoring, in addition to the kinds of counseling and support services. So initially foundation funding, then we were able to begin to work with the public workforce system and access some funding through the Workforce Investment Act. And so our system in Chicago now has been very good to recognize the value of bridge programs and career pathways, and to set up a separate category actually for that under the Workforce Investment Act. Of course, that has brought its own set of challenges, as any of you know, in terms of that are doing WIA programs, but it does provide the funding for the wraparound services, including then on the job placement side, which is most important under WIA to make sure we meet our the numbers that we have under the contract for people going into work. So it did allow us then to hire an employment specialist to work with individuals to find employment as they move through the pathway.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
We have one last question from Kath. We're going to take this last question from Kathleen Dowling. She wonders if you have any data on the on CNA post-completers. So how long do completers stay on the job before they advance along the career pathway?
Yes, that's something I have to add to the list to get you.
Okay.
And this pathway, we were fortunate to be part of a whole 3-year longitudinal study through the Aspen Institute and their Career Development Institute, or Career Workforce Institute. And so that has a lot of this kind of data. So we can send you the link to that study and try to identify the specific information that you're requesting.
Great, thanks. I'm going to squeeze in one more question. It's from Jody Davidson at Morgan College, and she wonders how far geographically you would suggest that your labor market information analysis extend. Do you have any recommendations on that?
Well, I think the key in defining a labor market is how far can people reasonably travel to work. If your target population tends to be without a car and needs to rely on public transportation, then you have to take a serious look at that and what the public transportation is that could be available. If people do have reasonably working cars, then you can expand the scope a little bit. But I think that's a traditional kind of understanding of a labor market.
All right. Thank you very much, Tom. Thanks for your presentation, and thank you, everybody, for your great questions. And you will get some follow-up from us on this presentation. I'm now going to turn it back over to Mary Kay.
Okay, thank you. And as we said, Chris, my colleague, in the chat window had said we will be collecting if there were other remaining questions, or even as we segue into Julie Mertz's presentation on attracting the right students. If you still have burning questions for Tom Du Bois, continue to send them. And when we send out our follow-up information, that will include links to the bridge guide and other resources. We'll also be sure that your individual questions are addressed. But now it's my pleasure to introduce Julie Mertz, the Dean of Health Sciences and Homeland Security and the leader of the Health Science Prep at Southwestern Illinois College. She's going to share information with us today from Chapter 3 in the How-To Bridge Guide on how do you identify the target population and how do you recruit the target population. And so why don't I hand it over to Julie so we make sure we have plenty of time for Q&A for her. Thank you, Julie, for joining us today.
Good afternoon, and thanks for inviting me to share our experience with the bridge. I'm going to be explaining Chapter 3 of Creating a Successful Bridge Program by explaining how my institution attempted to identify and recruit the students for our Health Science Bridge Program. The textbook, Creating a Successful Bridge Program, has a lot of additional ideas and worksheets to help you through the process. I actually wish we had had some of those when we started the process because I found some of the suggestions in there very, very useful. Bridge programs are generally targeted to a group of people who share common characteristics, and that could be their literacy levels, their English language ability, occupational interests, or current or past employment situations. At SWIC, we implemented a bridge course called Health Sciences Prep for students who are interested in pursuing a career in healthcare, but they lack the reading or the writing skills that were required to enter into or apply to one of our health science programs. At SWIC, we currently have 12 healthcare professions: emergency medical technician, health information technology, massage therapy, medical assisting, medical laboratory technology, nursing, nurse assistant, phlebotomy, physical therapist assistant, radiologic technology, respiratory care, and ward clerk. Every one of those programs, except our nurse assistant program and our ward clerk program, require students to be eligible for college-level reading and writing, so English 101. And I named all of them individually to emphasize the range and the variety of programs that our targets could pursue after they successfully completed all the components of the Health Science Prep course. That was critical because we needed to get a large enough audience to make the course run. So our target audience has the opportunity, again, to develop their reading and writing skills within a healthcare content, and if they're successful, be prepared to enroll directly into 4 of our programs that you do not have to apply to, or they will have completed the first steps of readiness to apply to one of the health science programs by not only completing their reading and writing component, but also by receiving credit, college credit for a medical terminology course, which is required for all of the other programs. So how do you recruit enough students to run a bridge course? It is very challenging. We knew that we would need to market it, but what was going to be our message and what types of marketing materials would we use? One of the first steps that we took to determine what our message was going to be is we identified what did students want or need from the course? What are the benefits of enrolling? And then making sure that we included those items in our marketing materials. Financial aid eligibility was critical. As we talked to about the course in the initial stages with counseling, it was the most commonly asked question, and we quickly realized that we should include information about financial aid on the materials that we were going to use to advertise the course. The other areas that we thought that the students would be interested in or would want from the course was the opportunity to complete their developmental coursework in a subject matter that was of interest to them. They frequently aren't interested in the developmental coursework. They drop out at that level. And it was our hope that truly the subject matter would be a key piece in helping them to move on the whole educational process. We also thought that the ability to earn college credit for the medical terminology would also be a catalyst for them and something that we wanted to advertise, and advertise that it was also required for the curriculum of most of the other programs. We also wanted to advertise that they would receive certifications after they completed the course in CPR and first aid, as well as universal precautions. So we wanted to emphasize there was going to be hands-on experiences in these courses. Another critical component or a special feature of the course is our coach, who is going to help them prepare for their future enrollment. We make students aware that in the course we'll help them develop a plan for applying to a health science program. 7 of our programs have a competitive application process, and 2 I would describe as highly competitive. So understanding and developing a plan for that application process is critical for getting admitted. We use this advertisement information about having a coach to help you with the application process. We also include in our Material Bridge program just logistics about the course. Dates and times the course is going to run, registration information. But another special piece that we include is we have contact information, not just for our enrollment services, but someone to help you with the registration process, a person from our office who's going to help them with that piece if they need it. Now the bridge text also recommends marketing messages, and they're described on page 31. But something that we've never done before, which I do plan on doing since I've now looked at the text or received the text, is a chance for adult learners to change their lives. I think that's a really critical piece that could grab a lot of people. There's also some sample language on page 33 that talks specifically about the recruitment message that you could put out there. So how do you find prospective students? We have information on our website. We include the course in our course listing pages, but that's pretty hit and miss on who's going to notice it. We wanted a more sure method of trying to find our target audience. So what we did is we worked with our enrollment services office, because all of those compass scores that students take to determine their placement for reading and writing or English 101 are entered into our PeopleSoft system. And what we did is we ran a query to get the names and the addresses and the phone numbers of all of the students who had taken the Compass test either a semester or 2 before our course was going to run. And we wanted to know the people who tested 1 level below English 101 in their reading and writing. That was our target. The other thing they could do was they could have completed the English a level below that. So they would be English 92, which is the same Compass score that we were looking for. Then not just those pieces, they also, when they take the Compass score, they have to identify their program of interest. So we had this link between a Compass score and identifying health sciences as one of their programs of interest. There are also feeder courses that we thought we could use to try to find our students. There are 2 courses in healthcare which don't require the English 101 readiness. And the students in those courses frequently have not taken their Compass test, but they do plan on pursuing advanced degrees. And as I said earlier, that's our nurse assistant and our ward clerk classes. Another possibility that we have not pursued, and we would lose that whole health content piece, would be English as a second language courses. It's a potential opportunity. We haven't explored it, but we would like to. And then you have these external feeders, again, getting more broad. Maybe people who come would be interested in it, maybe not, but our WIA offices. And then we also thought, ooh, hospitals. We could be sending out our flyers to the HR departments at hospitals. So that's also another place where people who work there who maybe want to advance up could be located. So how do I reach all of these people? Which promotional items are best? And does it vary depending on the location of the audience? We thought yes. And we did use different media for our varying audiences. We used flyers advertising the course, and on those flyers we always had pictures, because pictures sort of help people feel like, yeah, that could be me. It's a strong connection for the student. For our our very targeted audience, we used that flyer, but we also included it with a letter to our students to explain a bit more than what just the flyer would be. The flyer's more grab your attention. The letter gives a lot more specifics about truly the benefits to them. We also did some follow-up phone calls with that target audience only. Then for our broader audience, we tried to leave the flyers in the office. So there were flyers in the WIA office and the counseling center. And we would try to send flyers electronically to hospital HR departments. Also, the hospitals also ask us frequently to come and do open houses there. We would take the flyers along there so that the students were also aware of this opportunity. On our college website, we also have at swick.edu/healthcare. If you go to that page, you'll see a link for Health Sciences Prep. It has course information on that page. Also on those pages, when you go and you look at a program specifically, it will talk about Compass being a requirement. And then if you click that link, we also have information on that page that if you test into developmental reading and writing, here's another option for getting that course done. On promotional items, just remember that reading is an issue, so consider the reading level on your promotional materials. Another thing that we also do is we send emails to our counselors right before enrollment's beginning to remind them about the course and the benefits. And then again around mid-enrollment, letting them know like what does the enrollment look right now and asking them to provide us any information about student questions or comments about the course. So it's just sort of like stay in your face. Don't forget about the course. Face-to-face opportunities are very critical in trying to reach your audience. Research on the bridge programs in Illinois show that personal contact is the most effective recruitment tool. We try to meet with our counselors in a face-to-face experience. It's critical for them to understand the course well, to share it as an option with students who are coming in. We try to present to them at least one time a year at their meetings. We also share with them information, though, about the success of the students in the program, and the counselors use our website for information about the application process. So that's why it's good that we have information about the course on the website as well. Also, we've got those feeder courses, which having that face-to-face, I met you, I met the coach, and at our business career days, again, that face-to-face contact also very important. And then I explained already about the letters to our students that go along to the target audience. So who can help you? We think that the people who completed HRO 90 are completers can help you. The people talking to each other is critical. We would like to use them as they complete their programs to be a featured person on our website or maybe on some of our flyers to get some quotes from them. And in your text on page 34, it talks to you about how to put together a story of a completer. Their success in talking about the course is your success and promotion for the course itself. The counselors, because again, that face-to-face contact is so important, those regular reminders, the information about the student success trends, not only leaving your flyers in those support offices like WIA, but talking with the staff there, explaining things to them. And then you may also want to touch base that the people who are in your English classes understand about your bridge course. So like we meet with our English 91 instructors and our ward clerk instructors as well as our nurse and assistant instructors so that they understand the course well enough so that if students ask questions, if they can't answer the question, at a minimum, they can tell them who to contact to get more information about it. So, a key piece is personal contact truly is the most effective recruitment tool. And I think that's the key to successful recruitment.
Great. Thank you so much, Julie. I want to make sure the conversation was so robust with Tom and realizing we've got about 15 minutes left for today's webinar. We want to respect your time, but we want to open up the chat window. We see a question has come in already. And then again, if you want to raise your hand or if you would like to engage in conversation with Julie, you can hit *7 to unmute your line and then we just ask you to hit *6 to mute your line. And I do want to say particularly thanks to Julie for flagging some of the pages like worksheet number 3 on page 30, and then figures 7, 8, and 9 on pages 31 through 34 of the Bridge Guide. And you are exactly right. I've heard a lot of that feedback saying, oh, you know, what a rich resource, and for folks who are just learning and just starting their Bridge programs, I think that these resources will be really helpful to you. And like Julie mentioned in our follow-up email, we'll link to the website that promotes the HR 90 class on SWC's website, and then we can also include some of the language that they use to promote in their letter to students. But right now, the first question we had, and I do think it's interesting, I should make one last point of clarification. So Val Harris, our friend from Lewis and Clark, asks, does Julie work with adult education students in this course? Because, Julie, this is a developmental education bridge, correct?
We do work with adult basic ed. Now, actually, they have also developed a bridge program themselves so that students get high school credit and are able to receive that high school degree with a healthcare content. That is the direction they've gone. We work more specifically with adult basic ed for a flow into our nurse assistant course. They're aware of the health science prep. We work with those students more after they've completed the CNA course.
Got it. I have another question from Frederick Stanley, and he asks you, Julie, to do a quick review on how your query process in PeopleSoft that allows you to identify targeted students. So a review of your query process in PeopleSoft that allows you to identify targeted students.
The critical piece to this is that you're entering, our PeopleSoft has all the students who register, so that it has got all their information, all their registration information, all their course enrollment history in it. The critical piece is that we take the time to actually enter the Compass scores as well into the PeopleSoft system. So then, and I have IT people who help with developing the query, but you simply put those pieces together of, I want the students with a score from this range to this range, so that would be people who tested into our English 92 to be included in the query, as well as people who actually completed English 91 because PeopleSoft has their enrollment history, and then it also has all their addresses. So I contact IT, I tell them here is the kind of information that I want. They build that query for me, and then they actually, once it's built, then we can regularly run the query to get the names each semester of who we're going to send the letters and the flyers to.
That's great. I have Betsy Rubin saying, just checking, are the bridge participants all above the 9th grade reading level? If Julie has already addressed this, please ignore, but I think it would be helpful for you to clarify, Julie.
They test into English 92, which could be anywhere from the 8th grade reading level to the 11th grade reading level. And we were advised specifically not to take reading levels that were too low because it would be possibly very challenging for the students to make a jump that big. So that's why we went with the English 92 level.
Okay. While we wait for more questions to come in, we have a couple more minutes for questions. I actually have a couple. You referred to a coach, Julie, as a key touch point to help guide students through the enrollment process. Do you consider this person a transitions coordinator, a college navigator? What job title do they have, and what office are they based in?
They actually are based within our health science division.
Okay.
This person helps actually not just HRO 90, which is also what made it so wonderful, is we already had this position because people in general have so many questions about the application piece. So they do quite a bit of advising to students in general. We've linked them specifically to the HRO class, HRO 90 class, because they come specifically into the class. They meet with her individually. She touches base with them periodically through the course to see how they're doing. But one of their assignments for the students is to meet with her personally. They go through the application We have application planning guides actually for all of our programs that require an application, explaining all the pieces that you need to do and how many points you get for each area. So then you also have an understanding of, oh, a grade in this can give me more points than how well I do in another area. So they have an assignment that they meet with the coach, and the coach goes over the application process with them, and then they develop a plan for, okay, once I finish HRO 90, then this semester I'm going to take these courses. So it's kind of a layout semester by semester of what they need to do to have everything in place to then go ahead and apply and see if they are accepted into the program.
Great, thank you. I also, Judith Cossey added a note to chat, and I'm not sure if everybody can see it, so I wanted to mention it. Judith was one of the leaders that helped draft the 2012 Bridge Guide. So first, kudos to Judith Cossey and the hard work of compiling so many wonderful profiles on programs and effective strategies, as well as the tools. And so Judith's reminder to me is to make sure that people know not only are there worksheets in the hard copy for your reference, but when you access the guide electronically, and the links appear in different places. They will appear both here on the PowerPoint slides, and in a follow-up email, I'll also send you a PDF specifically of the Save and Send worksheets. The complete guide, you can see the worksheets, see the complete chapters as a whole, and then there's a sub-file that you will receive in a follow-up email with Save and Send worksheets, so that when you and your team are starting to build your message, identify your students, start marketing, you can use these, save them, send them, pass them around via email. So thank you for that reminder, Judith. I see Barbara Sitowitsky. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, Barbara S. If you want to ask a question to Julie, please hit *7 to unmute your line, and then when you're finished, just push *6 to remute your line.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to chime in. I'm an ICAPS navigator here in Illinois at McHenry County College. And when the students in our program, and when it comes time to register, I personally walk them through the entire registration process. Admission into the college, I walk them through, I take them all around and get them all set up. I'll take them to the bookstore to get their books, to really get their feet wet and make them feel comfortable here, because they are so intimidated and this is all so new to them. So when you were questioning or commenting on the coach, I felt that as though that's kind of what I do for our students, and it's wonderful and highly effective.
Great, thank you, Barbara. I have one last question. Actually from this end, Carrie and I were making notes back and forth, and we're interested, Julie, do you partner with any local community-based organizations, either to recruit students or to support their success while enrolled in the program?
No, actually that is a piece, another area that I believe that we need to grow and make those connections. I wish that we had. I do think that that would be instrumental in us gaining a greater audience. So that is in our plans, but no, we've not done that as yet.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I'm going to hand it over to Carrie. The reason that we, thanks to Julie first, both thanks to Julie and Tom. And again, when we closed out Tom's presentation, if you still have burning questions or you jotted down a note, please add it to chat. We're going to make notes of all questions submitted to ensure that our follow-up is specific. Or you hang up and you're eating lunch, shoot us an email, and we'll be sure to respond or forward to Tom and Julie, and their emails will also appear on the final slide. But now I'm going to hand it back over to Carrie in the last few minutes before we close out today's webinar.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is actually tell you a little bit about what you told us. So at registration, you were all asked a series of, I think it was 4 or 5 questions. And I wanted to give you a sense of where everybody is who registered for today's call. So the first thing is we had over 100 individuals register for today. So we really feel like we've gotten a wealth of information that helps us understand sort of where people are in the field, what your challenges are, what information you need, what your professional development needs are. So here's a snapshot of what you told us. So one of the questions we asked is sort of where you are in the development of a bridge process. So from I'm just learning to I'm experienced and I'm really looking for more models and ideas. And actually we had almost completely equal distribution across the 5 options. So we really have not only a wealth of interest out in the field, but really a lot of people at a lot of different places in the development of the programs, which is very exciting. You're not going to be surprised to hear this, but when we asked you what your #1 challenge was, overwhelmingly the top challenge was funding. But there were 3 other challenges that were very high on the list. One was actually recruitment of students and keeping students engaged. So what Julie talked about today, I'm sure, helped a lot of people who were registered for the webinar. Another top challenge was getting buy-in from within your institution, so other departments, leadership within your institution. There was actually a range of the types of challenges around buy-in. And then a third challenge that was identified, which is somewhat related to that, was really just developing partnerships, from the partnerships you need on your team internally to external support or external partnerships. We also asked what your top professional development or technical assistance need was. And again, we had one answer that really stood out, and that was the issue of contextualizing curriculum. The next top professional development needs, they weren't quite as definitive as contextualizing curriculum, but one was there was a wide range of kind of nuts and bolts to program development that people really felt they needed help with. And then there was the recruitment issue, again, was something that people felt they needed some technical assistance or professional development with. And then there was, again, sort of working across systems and building effective partnerships. So we definitely are hearing some themes from the field. Lastly, we did ask what your #1 choice would be for additional webinars, and this was at registration. And so the first was contextualizing curriculum. Sustainability and funding was the next top #1 choice. And then there was a strong interest in learning more about transition services and student assessment. So that's what we heard from you before the webinar, and so now we'd like to get a little bit more of a sense, one final poll. Again, this will help us prioritize future content of these webinars. So this gives you an opportunity to rank these topics from 1 to 8, #1 being your first choice and #8 being your last choice. So ranking something as #8 doesn't mean you're not interested in a topic, but you prefer the other topics first. So if you could go ahead and select a ranking on these 8 options, and then we'll take a look at the results. So very quickly.
And just so folks see the technology, if you click open, each one has a drop-down menu next to it, 1 through 8. So you can just very quickly, it's like, think of this as a standardized test. Go with your gut. Answer your first. It's like, you never want to think too much, but we don't know who's going to answer what, so we won't hold you to it. Yep. All right, now people are getting into it. Okay, we'll take a few more seconds to answer this final poll question. We're starting to come in. Don't hold back. It's election season, so we all know how important your vote is. Consider this using your voice, using your vote. We can see the results coming in, and it doesn't look like we have a winner yet, so you might want to weigh in. Okay, I think we'll close the poll for now, and we'll take a look at the results. Yep, I was going to say, we're just seeing a very large bump in numbers. We realize ranking 1 to 8 is a little more challenging than state your top 3, so we're seeing sort of numbers come rushing in. So out of respect, if folks are answering, we don't want to cut you off, but just try to do it quickly, and then we'll close down in the next couple of seconds. Okay. We're going to close the poll. All right. Thank you very much. And we will take a close look to see what the responses are. But to echo Carrie's point, and what we know so well already, we don't need a survey to tell us this, from spending time with so many of you in the field on various initiatives and efforts to build bridge programs, that leveraging resources and funding bridge programs is one of the foundational pieces of running successful programs. So we have already scheduled our next webinar for October 30th at 12 noon. Again, we'll try to keep it as close to 1 hour as possible. Folks log on promptly and we'll move right through it. We're in the process of confirming 2 more speakers. And again, using resources and the worksheets and information that do come out of the how-to guide. So save the date and look for registration information probably coming out before the end of September so that we have enough lead time. And I also want to just say a big thank you and a shout out to the many groups. I got lots of emails this week from various partners saying, hey, can we put this on our listserv? Can we post to our website? Can I announce this at a meeting? And that's why I think we've received such a great success. I mean, these webinars are just growing leaps and bounds, and there seems to be lots of interest in both the network and the resources that we're promoting. So here's the last slide. We're going to have our information here. You will receive a follow-up email that will include our contact information for both me and Carrie, and then obviously our presenters. We load the webinar recording onto our YouTube channel, our Women Employed YouTube channel, to have an audio recording with the PowerPoint slides. And I ask, we've asked a lot of times for your feedback, and so we want to be sure that we ask you to take 2 more minutes and fill out the survey that should show up on your screen, and just give us some insight in, do you need more information on what you heard today, or prioritize very specifically for content beyond funding. But thank you. Feel free to share and forward this information when you receive your follow-up email with resources. Feel free to contact us or the presenters at any time. Hopefully that's okay, Tom and Julie. And we're just really excited to see the energy and the interest in the field. So as of today, this is Mary Kay and Carrie signing off from the Pathways to Careers Network. Thank you very much for your participation.